Joel Osteen never wanted to be a preacher. For nearly 2 decades, he stayed behind the camera, producing, directing, making sure the world could hear his Father's voice. But one phone call changed everything, and what followed would make him one of the most celebrated and most controversial religious figures of the 21st century. Born in 1963 in Houston, Texas, Joel grew up watching his father, John Osteen, build something extraordinary. John had founded Lakewood Church in 1959 inside an abandoned feed store, with fewer than 100 people in the pews. By the time Joel was an adult, that congregation had grown into one of the fastest expanding churches in America. Yet Joel showed no interest in inheriting it. After a single semester at Oral Roberts University studying communications, he came home, not to preach, but to point cameras. For 17 years, he stayed in the background, quietly building Lakewood's television ministry into a broadcast that reached viewers in nearly 50 countries. Then, in January 1999, his father asked him, one more time, to fill the pulpit. Joel said no. Then, minutes later, he called back and said yes. On January 17, 1999, he stepped onto the platform for the first time, reportedly so nervous he slipped on a pair of his father's shoes for courage. John Osteen listened from his hospital bed through a phone line. 6 days later, he was gone. Grief pushed Joel into a role he had spent his entire adult life avoiding. He was formally installed as senior pastor that October, with Victoria Osteen named co-pastor. At first, according to his own accounts, he tried to copy his father's preaching style. The energy, the cadence, the mannerisms. It never felt right. The turning point came when he reflected on a passage describing how David served God's purpose in his own generation. The message he took from it was simple: stop imitating your father, be yourself. That shift transformed everything. His sermons became conversational rather than confrontational, centered on hope, resilience, and second chances. Families who had never attended church before began showing up. The congregation grew so rapidly that in 2005, Lakewood moved into Houston's former Compaq Center, a 16,800-seat arena, following a renovation reportedly costing close to $100 million. On its opening weekend, more than 56,000 people attended. It became the largest church in the United States. His influence extended far beyond Sunday mornings. His 2004 book, Your Best Life Now, debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and eventually sold over 8 million copies worldwide. 7 more #1 bestsellers followed. His sermons reached an estimated 100 million households and viewers across more than 100 countries. But with that scale came scrutiny. Critics questioned the church's financial transparency. Theologians debated whether his message softened Christianity beyond recognition. When Hurricane Harvey devastated Houston in 2017, questions arose publicly about how quickly Lakewood opened its doors to displaced residents. Questions the church disputed, though Joel himself later acknowledged he would have prepared the building sooner. A $4.4 million PPP loan, accepted during the pandemic, drew further criticism, though it was ultimately repaid in full. And in 2024, a shooting inside the church left the congregation shaken in ways no sermon could immediately repair. Through every storm, Joel Osteen walked back onto that stage with the same steady smile and the same message: that setbacks are temporary, that faith outlasts fear, and that every life still holds purpose. Whether that message represents genuine hope or something more complicated is a question millions of people are still answering for themselves. But one thing is undeniable: the man who never wanted the pulpit has stood behind it for more than 25 years, and the world is still watching. If this story made you think, hit like and subscribe. There's plenty more where that came from.